9 a.m. edition with Michael Mergens, SuperTalk Hattiesburg, 97.3.
Wednesday, that means it's William Carey Wednesday, where we put a focus on William Carey University. And today, joining me on the phone, Director of William Carey University's Baptist Student Union, to talk about today's See You at the Pole, Landon Adams. Good morning, Landon.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here with you today.
Well, you've had a busy morning because it started off 7:30 a.m., probably earlier for you. But See You at the Pole. This is actually an event that is celebrating its 35th anniversary. It started back on September 12th, 1990 in Burleson, Texas, and it's where a group of teenagers gathered to pray for their schools. I remember this event because the year following, it happened at my junior high school where I grew up, and then became a yearly event. But talk about Carey's event today.
Yes, sir. Well, we gathered at the front of campus right there in front of Tatum Court at 7:30, like you said, and we didn't really know how many people to expect. We've done this event before in the past, but it's never been a regularly established event, not much organization. But this year we did about a week's worth of promotion to invite people out to come and pray with us, and we, once again, didn't know what to expect, and we probably had over 120 people show up.
Wow.
Mostly students to come pray.
That's awesome. That's really phenomenal. Of course, looking at what's happening across our country, I imagine that's why this year's event was probably, it's always important to stop and focus and pray, but I think with just look at the news daily, that's probably why this year has really stood out.
Yeah, there's a lot of heartache and a lot of bewilderment in people today, and a lot of stuff going on in our country and around the world. And we're reminded in 1 Timothy 2 that we are to pray for all peoples. That's for kings and all those in authority. It says in verse 2 that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in godliness and holiness, because it pleases God our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and to come to a knowledge of the truth. And one of the things that we believe about the good news, the truth, is that it affects all areas of life, from your family life and what you do at home all the way to policy making. And so we want to make sure that we're praying that the Lord would have his way in the world, starting here and starting in our nation and all the way around the world.
Again, this is happening nationwide. This was a separate event from the national organized events, which is happening at a lot of public schools as well as private schools across the country. But with William Carey being a Christian university, someone might be thinking, well, yeah, of course they're going to do something like this. But a lot of times we have to kind of force ourselves to stop and organize an opportunity, because we get caught up in our daily lives, especially with college life, that these students are focused on their studies, hopefully, as well as athletics and all that. And even as Christians, we have to be reminded, hey, stop and pray.
Yeah, busyness, and I think there was a short article, maybe a book called The Tyranny of the Urgent, written years ago. The urgent and the necessities, the busyness of our lives, we often don't build in the margin that we need to stop and pray regularly, or to stop and reflect on what God's doing around us. And so, yeah, this was an organized moment to stop and to get up a little earlier, maybe, if they had class at 8. And some students I was asking, I said, do you have 8 a.m.? And some of them said, no, I don't actually have a class until this afternoon. And so some people actually made it a priority to stop and change their schedules a little bit and to come out there and pray with us early morning.
Well, that's fantastic, and I look forward to more events in the future and taking this opportunity. And I do actually remember that when I was in high school, there was a group of students that had decided to do it every morning. They would just gather out in front of the school. Of course, they had to do it student-led, And I don't recall if it was near the flagpole or not. I seem to have this image in my head that it was, but there was a group of students that realized, hey, we need to, and this was the 90s, so you thought things were messed up now. Think back. Sometimes we have to look back to the past like, oh yeah, that wasn't the greatest time either. But that these students kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, and it's really important, I think, that people catch the vision of student leadership. Of course, I was there, and other directors of different departments were there, and faculty and staff. Some were there at the front of campus to pray this morning, but the majority of people there were students. And as I think about our students around the country, whether it's public school, private school, students taking initiative is huge, because some people will say they're the church of tomorrow, but a lot of people are now saying, they're the church of today. They're the believers of today, and that's really important, especially knowing that people form most of their core beliefs and values within the first 25 years of their life. That this is a really important time in people's lives to begin to consider the importance of seeking God first.
And that's such a good point. And I struggle with trying to be negative when I look at the current generation, and I fall into that we're all doomed. Have you seen these young people? They don't know what they're doing. They're crazy. But the reality is, my parents probably said the same thing. I know my grandparents said the same thing about my parents. It's every generation. You kind of just look at what's happening. But you're right. I've heard people say that. I've heard pastors say that. This is the future. We need to be focused on right now and this moment. And I'm going to be honest, of course, with everything that's going on with William Carey and what I see happening with the Baptist Student Union, but also at area churches across the Pine Belt, there is movement. There is something happening, and it really gives me joy. I don't want to say hope, because that's looking ahead. I have joy right now in seeing what our youth are doing, and it's a movement that needs to happen right now, and that's what we should be focused on.
So we are seeing a lot of fruit and a lot of response in the collegiate world as well, all around the country. There's some really cool things that have been happening for a few years, but right now they're happening as well, and it's really important to be sensitive and to see, this generation rise up. You're right about the whole generational, mocking and that kind of thing. I mean, it is every generation. I'm a millennial, and so I've heard most of my life about millennials, all kind of stuff, and most people don't realize that the millennials are in the workforce now. They're not Gen Z, and then Gen Z is going to be replaced by Gen Alpha, and it's always the same little things people pick on with generations. But it's really important, I think, that each generation look at themselves first and reflect and think about, okay, what was my generation like? What's my generation doing now? Because we have to pass along what we believe is important to the next generation or to the current generation. So I'm glad to hear you say that about the generational stuff.
Well, even though I'm a Gen X, but I give my wife a hard time because she's first-year millennial. And yeah. I point that out. And once in a while, those little millennial tendencies pop in. It's like, see, you're not as, but she says, I'm just as much Gen X. I'm like, no, you're not. It's completely different. But we can put as many labels as we want on it. But the reality is that as Christians, these young students are the leaders of the future. But by speaking up, by doing events like this, by being a part of William Carey's Baptist Student Union, they're leaders right now, considering what's happening across the country, that they're willing to speak up and put their faith forward and not be ashamed of it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I heard growing up from people was that, prayer was taken out of schools and all this stuff. And I understand what people are referring to, but most people don't talk about the fact that students can pray, students can lead prayer, students can distribute Bibles, students can do pretty much whatever they see fit outside of instructional time to promote their faith in public schools, whether that's K through 12 or the university campuses that are state colleges and universities. I mean, our students have all the freedom in the world to promote what they believe, and I think that the current generation has finally understood that, and they are putting their beliefs out there.
At some point, I am going to take probably when I'm retired, I'm going to take the time to research this to see if there is a connection. But with that, my last name, Mergens, there is a famous case called Mergens versus Board of Education that actually established that student-led initiative. Of course, we have First Priority here in our area that equips these students to do that. And that's something that parents, I think we kind of take that for granted. And like you said, people say, well, we've taken prayer out of school. We've taken all this out of school. These students are the ones that, first off, need to be hearing it. But as adults and this generation, we need to be equipping these young people with the truth and these opportunities to speak up. We can't really rely on our leaders to do it, that we've got to make sure that our kids know what their foundation is and to take these opportunities.
That's right. And if it's important to you and it's your conviction and it's your main values, you'll talk about it. And people need to hear those things, because I think there's a lot of times there's assumptions that, either everybody around me doesn't believe, or everybody around me does believe. And whatever the assumptions are, you'll never know unless you speak up and have conversations that are winsome and cordial and are open. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do here at William Carey as well, is in our Christian heritage and our Christian identity is freedom, to be able to discuss ideas openly and to be able to discuss with people freely, because we believe that's what the Lord wants.
And something that I know, and I'll take this for granted because I'll talk about William Carey, and it is a Christian university. That is the school's foundation. But there are a lot of students that attend William Carey that are not Christian. They come from other beliefs, other denominations. But the fact that that doesn't deter them, because that truth through love just is amplified at William Carey.
Oh, yeah, and people are very open to talk about their beliefs, or whether they are the same beliefs or different beliefs. People are very open to talk, and people are very open to going to places and to going to events that are faith events. If the people that believe those things will just invite them. That's one of the things that we've been hearing a lot about lately is, there's statistics and research out there that shows that people are willing to listen, and people are willing to share their beliefs, and people are willing to go to an event or a rally or whatever you want to call it, if they're invited. It's just a simple matter of relationship that facilitates all of this. And
I think where our mentality is, especially with my generation, is because those negative thoughts have been the loudest over the years, and it's starting to get louder with the truth and these young students, and that's where it needs to be. It's not so much who's right or wrong, it's who's speaking up and making sure that they're heard. So I'm so glad that you're able to do this event today. See you at the poll at William Carey University. Director, William Carey University's Baptist Student Union, Landon Adams. Landon, always love talking to you, and thanks for taking the time out today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. Always love being on.
And we're going to wrap things up on the other side of the break. Stay with us.